Welcome to Keep What You Earn, a show for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to scale and build enterprise value without making costly mistakes. I'm your host, Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CFO and CPA who left a career serving Fortune 50 companies in Wall Street to help business owners just like you make life-changing wealth with your business. These episodes are meant to be super tactical and actionable, but please remember, consult your own financial professional before you implement anything you learn in this podcast. Now, if you'd be interested in working with us to do so, check out the show notes for more information about our company, Keep What You Earn Co. All right, let's start the show. Today, I want to talk about sales, which is something that I don't often talk about because it's kind of something that I think a lot of people already create content over and are really hyper-focused on. My focus with this show is really to bring awareness to the other aspects of financial management other than simply making more revenue. But one of the things that holds a lot of business owners back is how they approach sales. And this is something where it can end up costing you more than what you think to generate really, really good leads and to eventually close and sell more of your services or your products. So I really wanted to dive into founder-led sales. And I say founder because I just assume that a lot of folks who are listening are the owner and founder of their business. Founder meaning the person who ultimately started the business and began the journey. So what we end up seeing is that when you start a company, when you start a business, you end up in this role where you're wearing all of the hats. You're the marketer, you're the salesperson, you're the CEO, you're the people manager, you're the CFO. You're all of the things, wearing all of the hats naturally because it's just you. But one of the things that you probably hold on to longer than you should is your sales process. And this is something that time and time again, I've seen it with business owners. I've seen it with fellow fractional CFOs. This is something that we are actually working on ourselves here at Keep What You Earn. And that is really outsourcing or at least delegating a bit of your sales process. So whether that be discovery calls or cold outreach or lead generation, things like that, not just marketing, but actual sales process. So do you have someone who can do screening calls for you in lieu of, say, an online form or in lieu of an initial discovery call? Can someone make a phone call on your behalf and screen prospects for you? Is there a way that you could leverage other expertise in identifying good leads and doing prospecting? These are all ways that you can possibly contribute to that. Now, what ends up happening is we end up with a heavy reliance on the founder because of their relationships, their articulation of what it is they do, their overall charisma, their ability to sell their services because of their conviction with what it is that they do. And this creates a bit of an issue because you have no predictable pipeline or repeatable process if you're solely relying on the owner to go out and sell based on when they feel like selling, when they get approached, when referrals come in. And I'm speaking a little bit to you, a little bit to myself, because this is something I've also struggled with, but I found that this is inherently true because this creates a bottleneck to your growth. And this is something that actually created a bottleneck in our growth because what ended up happening was we were short-staffed for a period of time in 2024, beginning of 2025, which was a really tough time to be short-staffed because it was the year end. And all our clients knew about this. I've talked about this on the show before, but sales really took a back seat, and naturally so, because there's only so much time that I can spend in the business and my team can doing certain activities, and clients are our top priority. So what ended up happening was we really took a back seat on the sales and marketing front, and it shows. It really does. And what ends up happening is you're not going to be able to grow that area of the business because by not putting the reps in yourself, you will then halt the business because you won't be able to bottle up a process that works because you haven't tried enough to figure out what actually works. So without a set process of this is what we do, this is what we say, this is, how we conduct our discovery calls versus our sales calls versus direct outreach, like here's what you say, here's the script, or at least guidelines. If you don't have any of that, then you're already behind because you're still relying on the owner to do a lot of that. So how do you actually create a scalable sales machine, if you will? You need documented, repeatable processes. You really need to focus on having some type of process in place, whether that is just the standard operating procedure of how you execute sales and who does what, starting with that, and then going deeper into how you message, how you order your questions on your discovery calls, who your ideal client avatar or your ideal customer profile is, what qualifies a customer. This is huge. You have to have guidelines on what qualifies a lead, like what makes a really good qualified lead versus a not so good one. And then you should have what we call enablement materials. So you should have decks, proposals, case studies, testimonials, FAQs, recommendations, things that you can have that are tangible assets that you can use in the sales process. Not to mention, you should be looking at the different steps of your sales process and identifying, okay, what are the major milestones that people cross? So I'll give you an example. If you have a sales process where it relies on a series of a discovery call and then maybe a closing call or a sales call, but you may have a process where somebody submits a form or an inquiry. So we have, let's say, inquiries submitted. Then you have the number of calls booked from the inquiry or the number of screening calls that were done, whatever that looks like for you. So, whatever your first step is after someone submits a form, whatever the next action step they cross. So, they book a call or they attend the call. Like maybe it's just a call booking link out the gate. So, they attend the call. So, it's calls attended, the discovery calls held. Then maybe you have a step in between, or maybe you just have a sales call booked, sales call held, and then closing or conversions. So you just have to look at where are the different points in your process where someone could drive off and take an exit off the highway? Where are the different stops where somebody could just jump off the path? So could somebody book a call with you and not show? So track those, right? So it's the number of bookings and the number of show ups. What's your show up rate? Then it's okay for those who showed up, how many bought? So that's a conversion rate. So what you can do and what this enables you to manage is figuring out, okay, if I want to sell this to many clients, I need to hold this many calls, and that means I need this many bookings. So you can back into the likelihood that you'll be able to close based on the volume that you're producing.
Hey, Shannon here, and I have a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this podcast and enjoying this episode, please leave us a review on your podcast platform, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, any of them, and let us know if you're enjoying the show. One of your biggest takeaways, we would really, really appreciate it. Okay, back to the show.
And this also helps you set goals because one thing that, I've seen clients struggle with is having a really clear pipeline of revenue. And that's a function of not knowing what good looks like. So the fact that if you have to have 15 sales calls a week in order to get 3 clients, and that's the minimum you need in order to succeed in your business, the minimum you need in order to break even, now you have that input. Now you have that knowledge, right? And you can say, okay, is that reasonable? Can I produce that? Can I book 15 calls a week? Number one, do I have the time? Number two, if you don't have the time, can someone else do it? Number three, is it just feasible at all that you're going to be able to book that many? And if not, now we got to look at other factors. We got to look at your costs. We got to look at your profitability and say, okay, that is just not feasible. It's more like 8 calls a week. So what can we have to cut in order to have 8 calls a week be the break even point right now? So it's a big juggling mess sometimes to manage all of these different aspects, but at least it gives you some direction on what to focus on and what would be reasonable in terms of what would actually help you break even. So when you want to transition this and you want to get out of the sales process as the business owner, one of the things you really have to do is using these metrics, figuring out what works and what creates conversion. So what language, overcoming what objections, what techniques are you using to close, and what are the repeatable patterns that are actually resulting in wins for you? And can we bottle that up and make observations? This also means you have to record your sales calls. We record all of our calls nonetheless. I've never gotten any pushback on this. I record them so that I can take notes and get feedback. I don't record them to, use anything against the person or anything like that. I always record them for the sake of my own feedback so I can listen back to them and realize what I could have done better. So the other part is your CRM is huge with pipeline tracking, reporting, and measuring these milestones, and also figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So you need to be able to measure what is happening and then figuring out why is it happening. So what's the playbook? What are the scripts? What are the sequences? How are you following up? How are you re-engaging leads that previously didn't engage with you or said no? How are you following up and nurturing them? And then finally, you want to move into a phase where you can bottle all of this up and you can hire a sales rep. But now you have to move into a sort of sales coach role. You have to be the relationship builder. You have to be able to hand off the sale to these people. You want to be not on the frontline calls anymore, but you want this person to be in your position and be able to follow your process. And I think a lot of people overestimate what a sales rep does in terms of hiring the sales rep before you have a set process that already works. And if you hire too soon, the sales rep won't be able to reach their goals. They won't be able to earn their commissions. They'll get frustrated because you don't really have a process to follow. And they may not want to create that process. They just want to call and close. So just remember that. And you could be delegating your sales too soon by doing this if you don't already have a proven process or some type of pattern you recognize on what actually converts. And then this is a huge thing that I want to add on that I think a lot of people are now using a lot of AI or automations or just shortcuts. I call it digital shortcuts. There are a lot of digital shortcuts to copywriting, to DMing, to fielding direct messages coming in like ManyChat. There's a lot of ways that you can reach a lot of people a lot faster and in volume by using these different tools. I am not opposed inherently to these tools. I have just decided in our business that we're going to de-digitize. I've talked about this on the show before, that we're actually going the other way with this and saying, hey, when everyone goes right, we go left. Like if everyone is going down this AI bandwagon and using ChatGPT to write things for them, not with them, which is very different, but writing things for them and helping with their sales process in a way and writing all the DMs. I mean, we're starting to be able to sniff this out, guys. And it doesn't come across as authentic. It comes across as a copy paste. So you want to have some type of tech involved, but not over engineer it to the point where it's doing it for you and it's not really effective. You really should be refining your message. You should be working on how you are able to message. You should even consider sending video messages, audio messages, so people know it's you and it's not a robot. These little things really, really go a long way. Like I spend an inordinate amount of time uh, actually DMing people, sending voice notes and letting people know it's actually me and not like a salesperson on the other side of the DM message. Cause I think a lot of people are expecting that these days. So make sure that you're implementing some type of process in place, but also incentives. This is huge, incentives for your salespeople. So if you're going to hire sales reps, you might want to consider starting with a setter, which is somebody who could set appointments for you and just do the direct outreach just to get the appointments on the books. And you can pay them a set rate per appointment, or you could possibly pay them based on conversion. I like to do it based on what they can influence, which is number of appointments. Now, then there's a closer who could close the sales, and they're typically paid on a predominantly commission basis based on what they actually close. Now, you could do this a variety of ways based on your industry and based on what you sell, but these are just some of the more traditional routes you can take. You want to have some type of commission or performance bonus structure in place so that you're not giving people a comfortable salary and making their sales. Like sales is traditionally an incentive-based pay structure. You also want to make sure you are having proper forecasting. That's where somebody like us comes in with the CFO dashboard, the cash flow forecast to see, hey, what are the revenue targets we should be hitting in order to consider this a success? And then what can we do to reward when those targets are met? Or what can we do to identify when the targets are not going to be met and we could change course and pivot? So it's really about getting that real-time feedback and taking action as quickly as you can. And it's an enablement formula to be able to figure out, hey, what's working, what isn't working, and what do we need to do to change course? I think a lot of times one of the big mistakes in sales is that you don't realize that a strategy or something you're doing is not working until it's too late or until, we realize it's not working because we've had massive, disengagement or we're not closing and then we go, what's not working, and then we investigate it. It's really hard to overcome, or it's really hard to recover from those types of things. So just you want to be as proactive as you can in monitoring that and just make sure that you're always thinking about sales in one way, shape, or form. You're always going to be sort of in that role of sales leader regardless, but you really need to be willing to bottle up some type of process that you can delegate if you really want to grow and scale your company.
As you think about growing and scaling your business, it's important to focus on how your operating costs align with your profit and personal goals. Are you allocating your resources wisely? Are your expenses supporting growth, or are they holding you back? Building a sustainable and profitable business takes intentional budgeting and regular assessments of where your money's actually going. Now, with a power session, you can get personalized strategies to help your businesses thrive. Check out the show notes for more information on power sessions and how we can work with you to create the profit plan your business needs for a successful 2025.